Welcome to another episode of the Best of What's Up with Wendy's podcast. Today's podcast, I sit down with Kelly Rutherford during her brutal, globe-spanning custody battle, a legal drama that shattered the Gossip Girl's world. Take a listen. My next guest, best known for her role in the hit TV show Gossip Girl, but in recent years she has been making headlines with her bitter custody battle with her ex-husband, Daniel Geesh, and now has taken the battle for her two children to the White House. A petition has been filed with whitehouse.gov seeking a federal order to allow her two young children who were ordered by a judge to live in France with her estranged husband to move back to the United States. I just want to make note here before I say anything else that this is any mother's heartache. I am doing this for the children and all American-born children, says Kelly Rutherford. I am thrilled to welcome to my show the beautiful, brave, and strong and courageous Kelly Rutherford.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much.
I've told you this because we've talked for a bit before we started this interview that my heart is heavy for you. I've been following your story since the very beginning of this. So I'm going to take us all back to your babies were just 2 and 5. When you were ordered by a California judge in France, when they were ordered by a California judge in France to live with their German-born father, and nobody is French. I make note of that.
Right. I'm not French, and certainly he's not French. He's a German national, and he's been living in Monaco for a while, or has a place in Monaco. When we were together, he came back and forth in as basically a visitor. He said he never wanted to be a U.S. citizen or apply for citizenship here for tax reasons. And so it was fine because you can certainly visit the U.S. a lot as a foreigner, and he would do business. So he would go back to Europe for a week, or we'd go together, and then he'd come back here and back and forth. So this went on for our whole marriage, and then when we separated, he applied for some sort of work visa. Which I didn't know why, because he wasn't working in the U.S., because he didn't want to pay taxes. Of course, he wouldn't be working in the United States, directly.
Right.
And so that was odd. But anyway, whatever. Just thought, okay. And then as time went on, obviously something was said about this work visa being revoked. And we all thought, well, just because your work visa is revoked doesn't mean you can't come into a country. If I go to Canada and I'm filming something, and my work visa, for some reason, it wasn't filled out properly, and they say, okay, it's revoked, you need to come back in and fix whatever problem there is. Not that that's happened, but if it did, I could still go to Canada as a tourist, and visit Canada. So this is what was sort of strange about the whole thing. And then also, there had been 3 evaluations done saying that I should be the primary caregiver, and that the kids should, obviously see their dad a lot, and just because they were tiny, they were little kids,
tiny
when
babies.
We separated, my son was 2, and I was like 4 months pregnant when we separated. So you have to imagine, it wasn't like, okay, now let's just go 50-50. This was like, okay, this is going to have to evolve naturally, and I always wanted them to see their dad, and I never, asked for anything from him financially or in any way. I just said, look, this isn't working for whatever the reason, and certainly people separate for many different reasons, So anyway, and then we went into this whole thing, and it was like I was accused of everything you could ever, just like crazy stuff. And I thought, oh God, it's just so easy because of what I do for a living and in the media. And,
of course.
It was like the obvious thing. I thought, oh boy, here we go. And so anyway, that's just how it all kind of started. And I really just wanted things to be peaceful, but it's not always how it is. And so, we went through the divorce process, the evaluation. It was all saying that I was a good mom and that the kids should, see their dad and have a great relationship with him too. And but that because of their ages, it would be more of a step-up thing. And before we even went into court, I was saying, yeah, come, take him to the park, be with him all day. There was never an issue there from my end, certainly, because my parents went through a divorce, and I understood that kids understand everything, even though they're little. They feel it, whether they can mentally say, "Oh, this is what's happening."
Right.
They certainly can feel when a mother or father is acting aggressively or, not saying nice things about the other parent, that kind of thing. So I've always been very conscious about putting the least amount of stress on my kids possible through this process, no matter how much stress I've been going through. And, my goal is that no matter what has happened or happens, that, they come through this and think, oh, I had a great childhood. Really? That was going on?
Right.
Even though it can entirely be that way, particularly now that they're getting older, but at least they, I want them to look back and, get through this healthy and like good, so they grow up and can have great relationships and be healthy grown-ups too. And that's been challenging. I've had to certainly take the high road on many levels. And anyway, and this judge, when, finally she made this decision to send them to a foreign country, take them out of school like a month early, send them there and have me go back and forth plainly based on the fact that he couldn't get back into the country, not because of any parenting issues.
Which we should back up a little bit, which he never proved why he couldn't get back, correct?
Well, and there's nothing in the record saying that he couldn't come in as a visitor to this country.
Right. He claimed his U.S. visa was revoked and he could not enter the U.S. So,
correct.
Did he ever prove it? Never, right? Never.
No, and he was also required to reapply for a visa, and she gave him 2 years to do that. Here's a guy who sued Google and the German Post and a bunch of other people, and I'm thinking, you're giving him 2 years. It's a long time.
Right,
He's an adult. He's an adult. They're
right.
going to send these kids my kids to a foreign country and have me fly back and forth when they've never been away from me, or they're, and give him 2 years, and then at that point you're going to reevaluate the situation. I think there's something wrong here. Like we all knew. Like there's something so wrong about it, and you're thinking, and this is before I even thought, about constitutional rights. All these things that you just think, well, this is America. This is
we're going to be
my
protected.
country. Of course, yeah, exactly. Like you don't even, that doesn't even occur to you that that's what's happening. And it's when Alan Dershowitz and Dan Abrams and all these people came out and said, wait, this is a constitutional rights issue. What she did. It's bigger than a custody issue, and parental rights, our constitutional rights trump parental rights. So your right to be in your own country and to stay in your own country trump anything. So whether you're a criminal or they don't send you out of the country because you break the law. They can't. You have a right as a U.S. citizen to live in your country.
And as of this moment, this day, today, May 8th, your ex-husband, has he ever tried to establish himself in the U.S. or done anything?
No, I have a letter from the State Department saying he's made no efforts to regain a visa.
Amazing.
Yeah, and they've been there now 3 years, and then he filed in Monaco saying, he wanted them to be residents of Monaco, and Monaco basically said, we don't recognize the California state order anyway. So, yeah, they're now residents of Monaco. So basically what this judge did, she violated their constitutional rights as U.S. citizens, sent them to a foreign country with an unenforceable order, because a state court judge can't do what she did. Only our federal government can do what she did. And even they can't, you know what I'm saying? So what she did was, and no matter what we argued, whether it was like, hey, I'll take the kids there all summer, every holiday, we'll meet him wherever he can get in. If he can get into Canada, we'll take the kids there. Let's just keep them in school, keep them in their country, keep them with their mom, who's their primary caregiver. They're
right.
2 and 5. And, we try to accommodate in every way, shape, and form. And, there wasn't any way to convince them otherwise. And it was kind of shocking to everyone. Even the children's advocate person, at the end said he didn't think they should be sent away from New York.
And it's amazing that didn't even work.
Yeah, I know, right? So even the advocate for the children wasn't listened to. Nobody was listened to except for my ex-husband. And so it was just a very odd thing. And of course, I was just in shock. And I had no money left. So they made sure by the time this happened, I had no money to appeal. And
You filed for bankruptcy.
I did, because I had gone through my pension, every stock. I had sold
everything you worked so hard your whole life for.
Everything my whole life.
Right.
And everything I made on Gossip Girl, everything. Like, I sold furniture, I sold handbags. I had not really. So I was living in a friend's guest room because I didn't have. I mean, I was getting bills of $150,000, $50,000 a month from these lawyers to fight this. And my ex-husband has an enormous amount of money, and he said he was going to do this. And it's very easy to do. I mean, if you have more money than the other person, just sue them until they have no more money, and then they're defenseless, That's basically what happened. And so there I was trying to find a pro bono lawyer. My kids were in a foreign country. I thought, well, this is a huge mistake. Like, we have to turn this around. This is just not right. And this is when Dan Abrams reached out and Alan.
Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah, went on the news and said, this is insane. And, at least they backed me up, because, of course, it was like, well, she must have done something. And I was like, well, I didn't do anything.
I'm just a mom.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, and of course you feel you're just constantly defending yourself. And the truth is, I don't blame people for saying that, because I would have thought the same thing. I mean, if I had never been in family court, I would have thought the same thing. I would have thought, well, come on. Like, if people looked into this, there must have been something. I mean, this just doesn't happen. This doesn't happen, in this country. And I've never heard of this. And so I was of the same belief as most people, and that is, when you walk into a family courtroom, that it's going to be for the kids and what's in the best interest of the kids, and it's going to be fair and all of this. And certainly in my experience, that didn't happen. And, I since then, and having gone through this and had it be, public, have had so many people reach out and tell me their stories and talk about,
their heartache.
What's going on. I mean, I had no idea. I just thought I was very alone. And
it's everywhere. It's in California. Yeah. It's in New York. It's in Connecticut. It's all over. The fact is that when you get divorced and there's a custody battle and there's anything to do with children, can't we just put the children's best interest first? Because they drag it on. They spend all your money. And how is this helping the children?
Well, how does it help if either parent is living in a guest room and that's how they're seeing their children? I mean, this is where, for me, it's not about the money so much, because, I mean, I worked my whole life. I had a paper out when I was 9. My ex-husband never paid my bills or supported me. I've never received one penny child support. So, this wasn't, for me, it was more about, how is a parent supposed to take care of their child if they're bankrupted or they have no money? So there needs to be laws put in place that say, you know what, you've got to at least leave this parent enough money to take care of themselves and their children, through this process, or somehow protect, just in a humane way, because it's very easy for someone with more money to sue the other person to the point of no money and destroy them. There was a mother from Canada that called me. She's getting ready to lose her chiropractic office that she has worked for 18 years to build on her own, because, she's fighting for her child. And I'm thinking, here, you have lives being destroyed. People worked their whole life, paid their taxes, been good citizens, whatever, and now this is what happens. And so I think it's the reason I started the Children's Justice Campaign, and somewhat reluctantly. I mean, this isn't what I thought I'd be doing. I mean, to be honest, I'm now so proud that we're doing it, but it's like, what? This is now going to be, I mean, how did this, because there's so many people that, like, I've reached out to a couple of other people in my business and said, let's do something. And they said, Kelly, it's so corrupt, don't waste your time. And that was their response to me, And I thought, yeah, but, what about our kids and the future of our children? Like, I mean, this doesn't just happen to moms. It happens to dads. We can all team together and, figure out something. We may not be able to stop the corruption if that happens to be the case, but maybe we can have certain laws put in place for children's rights, because right now in family court, it's called best interest of the child, which is very vague. Whereas if it was the rights of a child, just because they don't pay taxes and they don't vote doesn't mean that they don't have rights.
Right. It's like they're silent. Yes.
Right.